Okay, everyone, we have Coach Jon Pfeifer with us from the University of Nebraska. He's an assistant strength conditioning coach there, working closely with many of the different programs there. But we're excited to have Nebraska join Connect and boost the number of institutions that are on here for young coaches to develop through. They have a great program. We're going to get into this today. But first of all, obviously, I want to turn the mic over to Coach and ask him to tell us a little bit about himself and how he got to the position he's at right now.
Hi, Coach. Well, first, thanks for having us. We are honored to be on the platform. This is awesome what you guys are doing, and we're hoping we, obviously have a wider network and a wider reach with this platform. But like you said, my name is Jon Pfeifer. I'm a strength coach here at the University of Nebraska. I've been here full time for 9 years now. I've had a plethora of teams. I've started with 6 teams, and then I added wrestling my second year, and wrestling has kind of been my staple for the past 8 years, and I've given some away and taken some. Now I'm just 3 teams, wrestling and both gymnastics. My journey actually ends and begins here at the University of Nebraska. I began here back in 2011. I was a strength and conditioning intern as well as a sports nutrition intern. So I got my beginning on the nutrition side. I was hired by Josh Hinkst, a fantastic mentor for me and then many other people at the time. And then after a year of doing nutrition, I was getting body weights one day in the weight room, and the basketball strength coach, Tim Wilson was his name. Awesome dude, one of my mentors as well. He's like, "Hey, do you want to help spot some guys on bench and squat?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And so that kind of led to a dual strength and nutrition internship. After a couple of years later, I graduated undergrad. A spot opened up here as a full-time strength coach, and then here I am today. So like Josh helped me get my foot in the door. Tim Wilson really kind of sparked my love for strength and conditioning and for mentoring young people. And then right now, our director, Brian Committa, has been a fantastic leader for me and for our program too. So I'm thankful to be at Nebraska, and I'm thankful to hopefully bring in more interns to continue on this awesome internship we have.
Yeah, that's great. It's reasonably rare that you hear of somebody from the nutritional side, at least to begin with, stepping into the strength and conditioning side. But obviously, to have that intersection of 2 super important parts to human performance must be great. Not in the least for the strategies that you can help the athletes with, but the conversations that I'm sure that sparks between your performance staff as well. Do you have a nutrition department at Nebraska, like that works under the umbrella of athletics?
Yes, we do. Yeah, so we have a sports nutrition staff that's actually pretty bolstered up. I believe we have 4 like full-time dietitians, or like actually, yeah, like full-time. And then I think we have maybe even 3 or 4 like intern dietitians too. So we are very fortunate from the nutrition side to have the resources we have to really help everyone, whether it's to see a program through or to see an athlete reach their goals. Yeah, very fortunate here.
That's great. I think quite often when we have these Connect calls, we talk to coaches that might be at a larger institution, a Big Ten school, a Pac-12 school, whatever it is. And then you have those smaller schools as well. And one of the larger differences is obviously like staffing and resourcing and stuff like that. And I think for young coaches, one of the bigger draws to a larger institution with larger budgets is the fact that they do have a nutrition department, or they have larger amounts of resources. And so coming to somewhere like Nebraska, where you may not be necessarily interested as a strength conditioning coach in nutrition per se at its heart of what that is, but to be able to see how those departments interact with student athletes and the impact that has, that only makes you better as a strength conditioning professional. So I think it's neat that they would have the opportunity to at least kind of observe that in action.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, not only do they get to see some of the dietitians interact with the student athletes before or after lifting or before practice or during practice or whatever, it's just being around all the different people that can impact you and kind of give you knowledge on a daily basis, right? And having so many people from nutrition. We also have the NAPL, which is our performance lab, which is really like sports science. We have like 4 sports scientists, I believe, which as a performance staff, strength and conditioning, sports science, nutrition, psychology, like there's a lot of interaction with these people, our performance team per se. And so it's really, really neat that the interns get to rub off on a lot of different departments and not just strength and conditioning.
Right. And you have a reasonably large staff in strength conditioning as well, right? I think I read you have somewhere around 9. Is that correct?
We do have 9 Olympic strength coaches, yes.
That's awesome. Great. And those 9 coaches, how, in terms of the facilities that you might have on campus, how are they distributed?
So we have 2 Olympic weight rooms. One's over at the stadium, or like the main campus, you could say, and like there's 6 coaches out of there. And then over here at the Bob Devaney Sports Center, where I'm located, which is still on campus, but still maybe about half a mile away from the football stadium, there's 3 of us. So it's both basketball strength coaches, men's and women's, and then me, who has wrestling and then gymnastics.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Very good. All right. So for young coaches who are interested in coming to Nebraska, they step foot on campus day one. Like, what does a typical day look like for them, or a typical week in terms of when are they going to be getting there in the morning? You know, in general, obviously semesters do change. We understand that. But in general, what does their day look like? What are their typical responsibilities outside of the coaching curriculum that they're going to go through that we'll talk about next?
Yeah, usually I would say with like hours per week, we try to aim for like 25 to 30 hours a week. I mean, I think the heaviest training days are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, probably 5 to 6 hours here, both of those days, either starting, at 6 a.m. and going till noon, or if maybe you're an afternoon intern, you could be, 10 o'clock to 4 or 11 to 5 type of deal. It just kind of, we try to be flexible with our interns too, because we understand this is an unpaid internship.
Mm-hmm.
People want to make money, whether it's, so they're like, hey, I need to work afternoons at my job so I can pay my rent. We're like, we understand. So just work the mornings. But usually so like I said, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday are the heavier days. And then Wednesday, we always bring them in and meet as an intern group with our staff, whether it's usually about an hour and a half, I would say. And that's usually in the morning, about 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock. It depends on the schedule. But I mean, really, we have 2 check-ins at the beginning and the end of the week. Just say, hey, this is what's going on this week. Set your goals. And the end of the week is kind of more of a reflection of how the week go, what you learn, what you have to improve upon. And then Wednesday is more of our curriculum day, or the day in the middle is kind of our curriculum day, where we have a specific focus for the interns. One of our coaches is walking them through our topic, like with the curriculum. And so, yeah, we usually 3 check-ins or 3 try to bring them together if we can. Mm-hmm. But the middle one is the Wednesday is definitely the longer, kind of more drawn out, invasive meeting.
Gotcha. Cool. And I would presume that of the intern coaches you've had in the past, maybe you have some students from Nebraska itself that are interested in, maybe an ex-phys program or whatever. And then you might have external candidates that come in. Sometimes, at least for us here at Marquette, we tend to have more of those candidates at this time of year in the spring who are doing their capstone internship for their undergrad or whatever. Is that a similar story for you guys? Like, what's the kind of mesh of Nebraska students versus outside students?
Outside students, we definitely have more of the outside students in the spring and summer, like you said, and then a lot of like Nebraska undergrad students in fall and spring. This spring, we actually don't have any capstone students, which is a first for a while. But summertime, you'll see a lot of kids not from Lincoln or not from the state of Nebraska.
Right.
But definitely like University of Nebraska kids, fall and spring are heavy semesters for us because it's so convenient for them. They're already at school. Right. Walk on over, intern for 4 hours, and go back to whatever you have to do.
Right. Yeah. Good. I like that. So then, obviously, you just mentioned the Wednesdays being your kind of curriculum day there as well. So let's dive into some of that material as well in terms of what do you look to develop. We don't have to cover necessarily everything right now, but what do you look to develop, and how do those sessions look?
Our curriculum is definitely focused on trying to make our interns kind of better thinkers, better, probably programmers, really probably the best way to put it. Like a lot of methodology, a lot of how to think through programs, how to write programs, because we feel like they get a lot of practical stuff on the floor. I mean, if they're spending hopefully 16 to 20 hours like a week during lift sessions, then the rest can be, okay, how do you actually program? How do you progress programs, regress programs? What do you have to think about? How do you write programs for kids that need special needs, or what I mean? Just things along those lines. So yeah, Wednesday is definitely more of our how to kind of programming day, and the curriculum kind of goes through that too. Starts more of like a kind of like an over like umbrella. Just we interns come in and we're like, hey, like, what do you know? We want to see you write an 8-week program. Like what's not graded is just no pressure. Just like, what do you know? Off that, we get a lot of information on what you need to work on, what you're good at. And then from there too, then we kind of chop it up as the summer goes on, or as the semester goes on different topics. Then at the end, you have another shot at programming. And there we see how much you've grown, and then you kind of realize too how much you've learned, and how far you've come.
Yeah, I bet you see a massive variety of programming ideologies through that practice. I'm just thinking about
we do.
Me when I was a young coach. Oh man, some of the stuff on there would have been drastically different to what I do today. And then you probably get some that just like you're very good at just being like simple. We're just going to do a knee bending movement, a hinging movement, blah blah blah. But others are just like, woof, I'm going to do everything, every gadget I can. Let's do it.
That's what we see a lot of, or that's what we saw a lot of last summer, especially. It was just a lot of people kind of trying to tie different things together, which is great, right? They're just trying to demonstrate their knowledge and how much they've learned, which is fantastic. And what's great about our program too is like we have a lot of coaches who run different programs too. So if someone leans more, Husker Power, like strength explosive split, we have people that know a lot about that and can help mentor them. We have someone from Minnesota who's in the triphasic, so they can kind of lean that way too, conjugate. Like we have different people that have different methodologies and different way of doing things, which is great. Like that's what we want. We want interns to be exposed to different things and kind of take different pieces from it to make it their own, right? To weld it into their own programming, because hopefully when they leave here, they're able to be their own strength coach, right? Whether they're going to a GA or a full-time internship, maybe a full-time role, they're probably gonna have to program. And so hopefully they're able to program when they go there, and they kind of know where to start, what the next steps are, and then kind of where to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it just there in passing, the Husker Power, and then those kind of 10 principles that support what you guys do. I wonder if you give us a quick tease, quick insight into what Husker Power means for you guys.
Yeah, so Husker Power, we are very, very proud of Husker Power. It was one of the first collegiate strength programs, or the first collegiate strength program in the country. We've had a lot of fantastic strength coaches come through here. We know Boyd Epley, Mike Arthur started it all, and then people have kind of exploded and went everywhere, right? In the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. So a lot of tradition here at Nebraska, a lot of tradition, and the 10 principles is kind of like our guiding light, you could say, for programming. And it's just kind of 10 things that we feel like should kind of go into every sound strength and conditioning program. It's like multi-directional movements, ground-based activities. Then it goes to the bottom, heavy light system, interval training, just kind of hitting on 4 right there. But it's just, we look at the 10 principles as a deal of, all right, if I'm programming and it's going to be a good program, hopefully you hit all 10 of these, like in the program. It's almost like a checklist, you could say. And it goes in a priority list too, 1 through 10.
Right. That's great. I think that's awesome. I think having, especially young coaches who, nowadays with the amount of information that's available to them, it's overwhelming to be like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough of X, enough of Y, Z, whatever it is, to have almost, like you said, a checklist or a strategy of, checks and balances along the way. It makes sure you don't leave, too many stones left unturned, especially as you move forward. I find that to be, that's a really neat idea to do that. So that sounds very attractive for a young coach in my mind, definitely. Yeah. So now, as we kind of wrap things up here, in terms of you've been at Nebraska since 2014, is that right?
Yeah, full time. So I was actually hired on Valentine's Day 2014. So I'm coming up on the best Valentine's Day I ever got, or I was ever asked. So yeah, Valentine's Day 2014.
That's great. So across those, what's that, 8 years now or so that you've been at Nebraska, you've seen a huge variety of young coaches come through and develop, many of which now, especially from those early years, out there in the field and have also been at full-time roles for 5, 6, 7 years. So I wonder if you could pick maybe 1 or 2 people that come to mind that have come through Nebraska that are now out in the field that, talk a bit about them when they were at Nebraska and what they were like.
The first person I'll mention is someone who was also an intern with me. We kind of came up together. He was also a dual strength and sports nutrition intern started with Josh and then mentored with Tim Wilson, but Ben Wagner, he's now with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been there for, I think it's been almost 9 years too, maybe more than 9 years, but he's a really good friend of mine and a fantastic person, even a great strength coach. But me and him really learned together. And one thing that Ben was great at is just always wanting to learn, always being around, right? Like when you're in a big department like Nebraska or any other athletic department, like there's always opportunities to run into people and create connections. And the more you're around and the more you want to lend a hand, like that's when good things happen, right? That's when you get momentum.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned from Ben. Ben will always wanted to be around, always wanted to help, and just always wanted to learn. And so with that, he's been able to have a really good role with the Eagles, one Super Bowl, hopefully another one coming up.
Yeah.
And another person I think of too is Katie Claprod. Katie was, I believe she was a student athlete up at North Dakota.
Okay.
Played women's basketball up there. I think did a GA up there at North Dakota too. I think, and then she had one more stop before Nebraska, but she was an intern here. Went to George Washington, came back as a paid intern, and then a full-time strength coach for us for a couple of years doing soccer and cheer and dance. And then now she's at the women's soccer league team in Kansas City, I believe. I don't know their team name, but she's their strength coach now for the Kansas City women's soccer team. And Katie was another person who was just always wanted to help and be around and wanted to learn. And Katie was so personable, right? Like everyone loved Katie, and she loved them. Just like wanting to serve others, I thought was, obviously in this field, you definitely can't put yourself first, right? You got to put others before yourself. And Katie was that. And Katie's been very successful. I'm sure she has even a brighter career ahead of her. But those Ben and Katie, be like them. They were great. Still are great.
Yeah, two things I want to kind of highlight there is one is like being around and almost being that yes man in a way, not with a negative connotation of being a yes man, but there's a book by a guy called Brendan Rearick. It's called Coaching Rules, and we've recently been reading that with our intern coaches. And one of the things is like in the first 5 years of your career, say yes, and then after that, learn to say no. Like prioritize what is important and what's going to push you forward. But yeah, certainly when you're younger, and yeah, like find ways to like be the yes man, like be around, as much as you can, because again, just like you said, you're going to make those connections through that. You're going to be reliable. People are going to look for you for opportunities in the future. So yeah, I think that's great advice. And the second thing is, in terms of like personability, you love having those intern coaches when they're with you for a semester or two, and then they move on for whatever reason. But the student athletes maybe haven't clocked that, and they came back the next semester like, where's so-and-so? Like, are they not coming back? And they like miss them because they have made such a huge impact. So like, yeah, strive to be that person.
Absolutely. And like both Ben and Katie, them being around so much. I mean, they were already bright to begin with, but just the more you're around and the more you want to rub off on people or make connections, like the more you learn too. So they just create opportunities for themselves, which ultimately creates opportunities for the teams they're coaching. So they were, fantastic people.
That's great. So I'm already learning about Nebraska that the ones that intern coaches that are most impactful are personable. They're a social chameleon. They're able to like have those conversations with coaches, but also be really impactful, good coaches. They're intelligent people as well. What else might come to mind in terms of what you're looking for in new strength conditioning coaches coming to Nebraska? One that might be watching this video, for example. What would you be looking for?
Someone who has good work ethic, someone that wants to work, wants to be around, wants to take initiative, because we do have 9 coaches, but we're all busy. I mean, a lot of us have a lot to do. I mean, when you're at Nebraska, our coaches are very integrated in their programs, right? Like me with wrestling and gymnastics, others with soccer, men's basketball, women's basketball. So we have to, not only do we have training sessions, but we have practice, and we have, staff meetings, and we have other things. We kind of have performance team meetings. And so coach or student coaches or interns that want to come in and take initiative on working hard, helping with the program, whether it's set up, tear down, actually coaching, and people that want to hear feedback. Feedback is really important in a coach's development. I mean, we can have the best curriculum in the world, we can have the best coaches in the world, but if you actually don't want to take the feedback to make yourself better, then it's all a moot point, right? I mean, everything we tell interns is like merely a suggestion, right? Like they don't have to take our advice, they don't have to do the curriculum, right? They don't have to listen to us. And really, it's on them, and they take ownership in their development, and then that's when you see really special interns. So I would say hard work, or so work ethic, initiative, and then ownership in their development. Those three.
Love it. Love to hear that. Perfect. All right. Well, obviously, anyone who's watching this video who's interested in a role at Nebraska, all of the information details are below on this page as to who to contact and the deadlines through which to contact them. So, Coach Pfeifer, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for everything you're doing for the profession and for those young coaches you're helping to get on their way. Obviously, you have an extensive curriculum. It's well laid out. The family, the alumni network that exists at Nebraska is pretty insane from the old days to now. So it's exciting for any young coach that happens to come through Nebraska. But yeah, thanks so much for your time. And hopefully this platform will help generate more interest for your program and improve the field in general.